Hi guys, Olive here. Today I am here to bring you my February 2016 wrap-up. I have decided not to make a TBR for the first half of March because I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling. However, a little later on I will be making a TBR for the second half of March. The first book I read or listened to was Euphoria by Lily King. This is about a famous American anthropologist named Nell Stone, her husband Fenn, and another anthropologist named Andrew Bankson, who is an Englishman, all studying native tribes in New Guinea in the 1930s. Andrew Bankson has been in the area for quite a long time. Nell and her husband Fenn come to the area in search of a new tribe after their old tribe didn't quite work out for them. Andrew Bankson, to say the least, is incredibly lonely at the beginning of the book, and when he meets Nell and Fenn and realizes that they're going to be staying in the area, he clings to them like static. Nell and Andrew Bankson hit it off immediately. They have a very strong intellectual connection. This serves as a catalyst for the tension that continues throughout the book. I was very surprised by this book. I didn't expect to fall in love with it as much as I did. It's a very slow burn of a book, and I've really grown to love those more quietly powerful books as time has gone on. Overall, the book says a lot about the study of other cultures, about the emotional connections between people of the same culture, of different cultures. Erica from Erica Rayable did a wonderful review of this book. I was so excited to see that we were reading it at about the same time because I love to hear her thoughts about it. I will link her review down below. Definitely go and check it out if you're interested in this book. I gave Euphoria 4 stars. I had a really great audiobook month, and the second book I read was another audiobook, and I finally read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I am not sure how I accomplished this, but I went into Pride and Prejudice knowing nothing about the story besides some of the Mr. Darcy hype. And I think because of that, I ended up enjoying it so much more. The characters were so colorful. I really enjoyed the story. The unlikable characters are deliciously detestable. And all the other characters, you hop back and forth between really connecting with them and feeling frustrated with them, almost as if they were real people in your life. I will say that I liked Mr. Bennet better than I liked Mr. Darcy. So much snark. How can you not love that? I will be going forward in my plans to read more of Jane Austen's work. I would ideally like to finish all of them. The next one I'm going to pick up is Emma, if only because that's what the movie Clueless is based off of. My friend Hillary from Your Robot Friend was so kind to remind me. The first book I finished in February that was not an audiobook was Acada Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a YA title about an albino Nigerian girl named Sunny. At the beginning of the book, she has this weird vision in the flame of a candle. This vision was foreboding the end of the world. She's pretty confused by it, but things start to make a little bit more sense when she makes some new friends and realizes that all along she's had magic powers or juju powers. She's what they call a leopard person or a magical person. No one in her family seems to have these magical powers, which is unusual since leopard people tend to run in families. But she is very quickly ushered into this world of the leopard people and being taught all these things that other people have had a chance to learn, but she hasn't. Meanwhile, there is a serial killer on the loose that's abducting children. I really enjoyed this book. It was obvious that Nnedi Okorafor took a good deal of inspiration from the Harry Potter series in shaping this world, but she twisted it in such a way that made it really unique. Nigerian culture really sings through. That was really refreshing to me. All of the fantasy books that I have ever read are very deeply rooted in Western society, Western culture. It was really unique. I really enjoyed the aspects of Nigerian culture that came through. It did drag a little bit in the middle. It took a long time to get to the climax of the book. But this book is actually going to be a series, so I can forgive it for that. I am lucky in that this book came out a few years ago. The sequel is due to be published later this year, so I do not have that long to wait to connect with these characters again, which is something that I'm really looking forward to doing. They all had so much personality. I cannot wait to go back into the world again. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book I finished was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, this glorious dust jacket-less copy. I talked about my feelings on the first and this second book in the first installment of my series, A Grown Woman Reads Fans Harry Potter. I will link that video down below if you are interested in hearing my thoughts on the first 2 books in the Harry Potter series. Next, I read The Last Werewolf by Glenn Duncan. I read this as a buddy read with Elena from Elena Reads Books. I first just need to give a shout out to Elena, who is the buddy read queen of BookTube. I am extremely new to buddy reads, and Elena was so on top of it the whole time we were going through reading this. She definitely gave me an education in buddy reads that I will be using in the future, so thank you. Not only did she teach me essentially how to do a buddy read, but I had so much fun reading this book with her. This book is a gritty fantasy that centers around the last living werewolf on the earth. His name is Jake. He's been around for about 200 years, and every full moon, he kills and eats people. He's also being hunted by an anti-paranormal organization that seeks to kill him while he is in his werewolf state and essentially mount his head on the wall. His only friend is an inside agent in this organization and is trying desperately to keep him from harm's way, even though Jake himself is pretty resigned to die. The story begins right after this friend of Jake's tells him that the other living werewolf has just been killed by this organization, and now he is, in fact, the last werewolf. Things start to take off from there. It gets so much crazier than I thought it was going to. It is very, very dark the whole way through, very gritty. It reminded both Elena and myself of a film noir, kind of Sin City-esque. It is a very sexual book, a little bit less than I had anticipated, but still very sexual nonetheless. Both Elena and myself ended up finishing this book much sooner than anticipated because it had kind of hooked both of us. But unfortunately, I ended up liking it more than Elena did. This book did what I really love books to do, which is get me thinking about a whole bunch of different things that aren't necessarily spelled out in the book. I can't really go into what all those things were because that will go into spoiler territory, but I really enjoyed reading this one. It is way more fast-paced and action-heavy than I anticipated it being. I did not hate that at all. It really helped pull me through the story. It also had very short chapters, which is a surefire way to have me ripping through a book. There are 2 more books in this trilogy. I will definitely be continuing with them, although I'm not quite sure when. I ended up giving it 4 stars. A book I was listening to in audio but following along with in text form was Death Comes to Pemberley by P.D. James. After finishing Pride and Prejudice, which is a very, very Moorish type of book, I wanted to continue in that world, and I saw this at a library book sale, picked it up, and immediately started reading it. The story takes off years after the events in Pride and Prejudice. There is a ball being held at Pemberley, but all of a sudden a coach shows up in the middle of the night and an accident has happened in the woods surrounding Pemberley. Someone ends up murdered. Then there is a whole investigation to find out what happened. One of the main characters from Pride and Prejudice is assumed to be the killer the whole way through. I really liked the beginning parts of this book because it was imagining what life would have been like for the characters following the events of Pride and Prejudice, which is what I really wanted out of it. I probably should have stopped after that point, however. I really do not like stories or mysteries that the whole way through the book are feeding you information, but then nothing is explained until a giant info dump at the end. And that is precisely what this book did. It drags on for a long time and then everything is explained all at once. If you're into that and you like Pride and Prejudice, then this might be for you. I unfortunately did not really care for it. I gave it 2 stars. I listened to one final audiobook in February, and that was How to Be a Parisien Wherever You Are: Love, Style, and Bad Habits by Anne Berest. I picked this book up for 2 reasons. The first one being the audiobook was available through my library, and the second being I was reading The Queen of the Night and wanted to feel like a Parisian. I had really mixed feelings about this book. It was very, very short on audiobook, kind of a throwaway, to be honest. I really like the attitudes of the French toward beauty and simplicity, not being afraid of aging, developing your own sense of style, getting to know yourself, respecting your body as your body is starting to age. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really liked seeing how women in Paris are like the rest of us, and that were a whole host of contradictions. And there were other things that I didn't like about interactions with men in general, dealings in the workplace, things along those lines I didn't really take much out of. I gave it 2 stars. It was certainly nothing to shout about, but it was a fun little palate cleanser. And last but not least is a book that I literally just finished today in March, which I guess shouldn't count, but I was reading it through the entirety of February, and I would really like to talk about it before my March wrap-up. That was The Queen of the Night by Alexander Chee. I have very complicated feelings about this book. On one hand, it is elegant, it is sensual, it is enveloping. It is like this world is slowly being painted around you and you're stepping into the Paris court in this time period, and the characters are so tangible. All of that is definitely a credit to Alexander Chi's writing, which is absolutely beautiful. But somewhere about 150 to 100 pages from the end of this book, it lost its magic for me. I haven't pinned down exactly why that's the case, but I was losing my interest in reading it, which is why I did not finish it before the end of February. It is a very long book. It's about 550 pages, and it really felt like it was dragging at some points. I unfortunately guessed a lot of the plot points before they happened. The basic premise of this book is that there is a very, very famous and very talented opera singer living in Paris, and her name is Liliet Byrne. She's a legend by the point that the book starts on. She is approached after one of her performances by a writer who says that he is writing this original role for her and he would be honored if she would accept and play this role. This is the greatest honor that an opera singer can receive, to originate a role and paint herself into history as having done so. The only problem with this role is that as the writer is explaining the role to her, she is starting to realize that this character's history nearly perfectly mirrors her own history that she's kept secret except from 4 people in her life. One person loves her but betrayed her. One person owned and still wants to own her. One is dead, and one she hopes never thinks of her at all. Thus, the story is really pitched as a mystery, and there are definitely mysterious elements to it, but not enough for my liking. Maybe I ended up having mixed feelings because I was expecting a more mysterious type of book, and that is not what I really ended up getting. A lot is said about the music and the stories of these operas she's performing in, and I just wasn't captivating my interest. For now, this book has a 4-star rating from me. I am not sure how I'm going to feel about it as time goes on. I hope that I'm going to look back at it and think better of it as time goes on, but I am just still very unsettled in my feelings toward it. So those were all the books I read in February 2016. I would love to discuss any of them with you in the comments section. If you'd like to reach me elsewhere, all social media links are listed down below. I will be posting a March TBR here in the very near future, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely day. I'll see you next time.